to talk today, but still it is mainly for the people who have no idea about how they can go about their research, what are the components of the research. And each of these components which I'll be talking today is very vast. So what I'm doing is I'm just touching on the, I'll just touch the topics, but each of these topics requires a lot of insight about it and lot of detail understanding, which we in future, if it is required, we can come across with those lectures as well, where we can discuss each of the topic in full details and understand each individual concept which is related to the research. But today's lecture, I will just tell you how from where basically the research starts from the scratch till where it ends, and what are the process which is involved during the research, and how you can go about each of the process. And once you start doing it, you can remember these points. It will help you in shaping your research in the right direction. A good research is not about if you have a good outcome or not. A good research is all about how the process of your research is. If you have a good process of your research, if your methods are good, if the process of your research is good enough, the end result of your research is found to be authentic. Any reviewers, because ultimately what happens is, either at the end of any research we have to write our thesis, and from those thesis the ultimate goal of any research is to make a contribution to the society, or you publish some new findings, or you publish some new articles which will contribute to the literature. Also it will help the profession to grow clinically as well as in terms of research as well. So that's where your process, understanding of the process is very very important, because if a process are flawed by any means, and most of the times we are not aware of these flaws, because we do not know what concepts we should apply during our research, so that we can avoid these flaws and make our research a good one. A good research is all about the process. So always remember, outcome whatever you get is a byproduct of the process which you follow. So if you follow a good process, you have an authentic research, which is more important than finding a good output of that. So I hope I'll be very clear with these points so far. And as soon as I get a good to go from Kapil, I can start formally about each of these research concepts.
Okay, sir.
So Kapil, shall we start
Hello,
now? Can we
everyone,
start?
and welcome. Yes, yes. Just I give a little bit introduction and some information before we starting the session. Then we will heading with the presentation, sir. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to today webinar. It's me, Kapil Gautam, optometrist by profession, and I am hosting for the today iTalks program by Mero Eye Foundation, and I feel privileged to welcome you all for the session. Okay, we have invest already time for waiting, so without being delay, I would like to proceed. Before starting our webinar, I would like to request all the attendees, please mute your microphone through that audio option that is visible on your screen. And let me also inform you that we'll be conducting discussion session at the end of the webinar. So we have enabled our chat, which you can see easily on your screen. If you have any queries in between, please just text there. Okay, our topic for today's webinar is Introduction to Research Methodology, and speaking delegates we have Mr. Zeeshan Akhtar, sir, and he is the assistant professor from Susant School of Health Science and Ansal University, Gurugram. So, are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm right here, Kapil. So
Okay,
hello
so we
everyone.
can proceed.
Thank you, Kapil, for your kind introduction. So hello everyone, I'm Zeeshan, as Kapil said, and I'm currently associated with Ansal University, and I'm the assistant professor of the Sushant School of Health Sciences. I mainly take care of the optometry program here. I look after M optometry and B optometry programs here. I also take care of the research activities of the department, and also guide students for their master's and bachelor's thesis and research projects as well. So today's topic is about introduction to research methodology. As the term itself is clear, all of you understood that we are going to talk something related to the research. Generally what happens is, mainly most of the time these topics find to be very boring, to be very frank and honest with all of you, but I'll try to interact in such a way that all of you will understand the basic concept of. The goal of this presentation is to make you people aware give you a trigger about the research methods, give you a trigger about the concepts which is involved in the research. And my slides basically will not give you a lot of insight, because I keep my slides very the content of my slide is will not have a lot of information. So it's more of a just the background for me to take some points. But the more we can discuss, you can understand things better. And please feel free to ask any questions in between. Also, if you have any questions, you can forward it to Kapil and he can pause me in between and we can discuss on that. My objective of today's presentation is mainly to make you people aware about the process of the research, and from the first point itself, where we can start and where we can end our result. The whole journey of a research project or whole journey of a research we will discuss today, and mainly what are the methods involved in that, how we can make our research a good quality of research. That's what is more important. Everybody does the research, but at the end of the day, once you try to publish your work, or once you try to get some recognition out of your work, you feel that there are so many flaws, or the reviewers give you a lot of comment which tells, okay, these many things were not followed, or the methodology which was followed during the research was not up to the mark. So today in our class, or today's in our this discussion, we will understand what all things are important, what all things we can apply, and what all things we can avoid to make our research an authentic one. That's what we are going to talk about today. So if you see here, the first slide, it's talk about the introduction to research. So basically, if you look into it, research, what the understanding of research term is very important for all of us. So it's nothing but more of a searching things again and again, where as you can see here, re means again, and search means is to examine closely and to carry out the test and try to probe into or look into the more deeper into a particular concept, or into a particular method, or into a particular treatment modality. Especially while I'll talk in these terms, why? Because of most of the optometrists, we deal with the clinical data, we deal with the clinical patients. So our research is more of a patient centric research, because whatever the research we do, it should be ultimately go back to the community, help the community in such a way that it is going to improve the overall quality of life, and especially the eye related health of the patient. So that's where research related to the optometry and vision science is very important. And it's basically, as I said, it's a patient centric research. So we have to look into how we can improve things for the patient's benefit or the patient's point of view. So that's where introduction to research, if I'll talk about, it is just nothing, anything, any topic or any concept you want to look into, you go to the internet, you search about them, you find out what is lacking there, find out some research gap and start working on that. So it is basically a scientific inquiry aimed at learning new facts and testings. Okay, it includes systemic collection, analysis and interpretation of the data, because anything which you do, it involves a lot of process, and data collection is one of that. So you can extract some data. Extract data is nothing but the information which you will extract. You extract some information, you analyze that information and give you some conclusion or output based on that, which may be applicable, may not be applicable onto the community or onto the vision science or health sciences, where you can implement this and make the it is beneficial for the patient. So that's where any research, if you think what research is all about, research is nothing but just re-looking into some things again and again, and every time you look into something, you give some or the other new finding which was not known before. So research means is mean to add on to something to the existing knowledge. जो कुछ भी हमें पता है, whatever the existing knowledge we have, we need to add something to it. So anything if you add, sorry, can we continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There is a disturbance from the audience. You can continue, sir.
No problem. So it is mainly on the adding on to the new concept, or adding on to the new information into the existing research. This slide is very important, because this slides give you an insight on how you can start, or from where the research starts and where it ends. So any research, if you look into these research process guidelines, you will understand. I have put some bullet points here. Any research starts with the formulating research query or the problem, what you want to look into, what you want to solve. Okay, so where you find there is a gap in the literature that you need to find. So it always start with a query. Okay, this query is basically, I'll discuss this in detail also in further slides, is basically an idea. कहाँ से आपके दिमाग में, or in your mind, from somewhere you'll get some idea, or you some of your observation in your clinic or in your research area which gives you an insight. Okay, that will be a trigger for your research. So it's basically start with formulating any research query, and then based on that you can do some literature review. Now, literature review is why literature review is important, because literature review will give you an insight on what all is the existing information or knowledge exists in the health world or in the optometry world related to that particular topic. So let's say, for example, if you want to do something for amblyopia, okay, so you will go to the literature search, read about amblyopia, and you will understand that, okay, what all is the existing information which is available. This is happening with the help of literature survey. From the literature survey you will come to know, and you will formulate your hypothesis, which is your research gap. Your research gap is the one which you will, in your further research, you will try to fulfill. Okay, and that becomes your aim and objective of your research. But the aim and objective of your research is nothing but the research gap which you try to fulfill using your research. And then based on whatever is the research gap, you design your methodology, which is your research design. Now this is very, very important again, because research design and research methodology is a key aspect of your research. It gives you, if you find trouble here, and if you're getting some wrong information or wrong process add on to here, your whole research will be spoiled, or the outcome will not be reliable. So your, how will be your output will be, it depends on what kind of methodology you have followed. Methodology involves a lot of things. It involves the sampling criteria. What is your target population, who will be serving as your samples, then how you will do the data collection. After the data collection you have to analyze the data, interpret the data, and based on the output you will get, you have to write a report in terms of your thesis. If you're working, if you're a student, if you're studying, if you're a PhD, masters, you have to write a report. And otherwise you can also write a manuscript, which we call it as a research paper, which you publish. A lot of research paper are published in the journals. So this is the outcome or the end result of your whole research. You compile it in a form of a writing paper. It can be your thesis, it can be your manuscript, it can be your some other articles also, and publish it. So once you publish it, it goes to the professionals. They read about it, they extract the new information which has been provided by the researcher, and accordingly they implement that into their clinical practice as well. If it is authentic, if it is good, if it is makes a difference to the patient, it will be implemented into the clinical scenario as well. I hope so far things going well. Kapil, any trouble so far? We can continue.
Okay, sir, we can
Fantastic. Anybody has any doubts, please stop me in between.
sir.
That's not a problem at all. Okay, so before we go into and understand the each of the components of the research, as in the last slide which I showed you, from the literature review till the research writing, I will discuss each aspects in little bit of detail. But before we go into it, we should also know or understand what are the qualities of the good research. So whenever you are conducting any research, these 4 5 points you need to always keep in mind, so that your research should fall under these categories, or should have these aspects which makes your research a good quality of a research. What all are the aspects of that? It should be controlled, it should be rigorous, systematic, valid, empirical, and critical. These 6 bullet points will overall sum up what should be the quality of a research, or the quality of a research paper which you will be writing, or the quality of a research which you will be conducting. So control in the sense, it should affect of one factor on the outcome. Basically what happens is, sometimes there are, I will discuss again, these things are all come into my subsequent slides in detail, that it should be very much controlled. Let's say if you are looking into one aspect of it, you should also understand what all are the related aspects to that particular concept or theory, and that should not have any effect on the other thing. So for example, if you are trying to look into the concepts of amblyopia, for example, and and let's say if you want to understand the concept, or if you're trying to build some relationship between the stimulus deprivation and amblyopia, you should also take care that other components which can affect your outcome should not be involved into it. That is something called as confounding factors or biases. I will talk about them. So these things should be, everything should be well controlled. It should be rigorous. Rigorous in the sense the procedures which you follow are relevant, justified, and appropriate. It means the procedures which you follow, it should be very much relevant and justified. Means you should always use the gold standard procedures for your examination or for your data collection, whatever. Let's say if you're having a clinical data to take care about, the clinical concepts which you are applying, or the investigations which you are doing for the patient, it should all involve the gold standard procedures which are highly reliable. Because if your procedures are not reliable, your output cannot be reliable. So that you have to take care of that. And it should be systematic. It should not be haphazard. It should have a basic concept. It should have a flow chart. It should have a stepwise procedure which is uniform throughout your research and cannot be changed. And it should be valid in the sense that whatever the findings which you are giving, you should have justified them, as well as if somebody else look into those findings, they can also verify, yes, these finding can is reliable. This process is basically your review process. Your verifiable and validated has been taken care by a lot of reviewers also, which reviews your work, or especially your guides and supervisors who guide you and tell you what to do, what not to do. These all are a part of a research. Then it should be empirical in the sense whatever the findings you are giving at the end of your research, or the output or the results of your research, it should have a conclusion which is based on the evidence. It means it should be justified. Whatever the recommendation or whatever the output you are giving, it should be have some backup of the evidence. It should have some scientific evidence which can back your output. Then only it is reliable. You just cannot make a statement, okay, I have found this was my finding. No, we cannot do that. We should always back our output with some or the other scientific evidence. And it should be critical. Means it should use appropriate method. Critical in the sense it takes care a lot of things, especially the ethical aspects of the research. Very important, because majority of the research which optometrist and vision science people does involves lot of human samples, okay, or a lot of animal samples. So that is where ethical consideration is very important. Your research should go through the ethics board. Your research should, before you start your research, you should get approval from the ethics committee. And all these small things are very important. Most of the times we ignore these things, but we should never, before you even touch your patient, even your first sample, you should have an ethics clearance from the research committee of your organization, which tells, yes, there is no ethical violation of the human rights which is happening through this research, and this research can be very well conducted. Then only you can go about your research. Okay, because if you do any such thing where the human ethical violations are happening, or patients are at risk of any kind, that either patients should be aware of that, or you should avoid doing such kind of research or procedures on the patients. So these are the some good qualities of a good research, or these are the aspects which should always, as a researcher, you should keep in your mind, so that whenever you're conducting any research, you make sure that everything falls under these categories. So now after all this, how we can start with, as I said, the first point was research formulation, or the how you generate the idea, or how do you generate the problem. So it basically comes from the idea, your thoughts and ideas. How can your thoughts and ideas can come from it? Either you are passionate about contributing something to your profession, or contributing something to the new to the science, or anything like that. People who can keep on thinking or try to look things into a different aspect. So your ideas through other researchers, it can come from, like, you're reading some other articles, or you're going through somebody else research, and you find out, okay, these many information is given, but there was some relevant information which was missing, or the researcher has not looked into it. So the gap you have found into those research. Also, something which is very relevant to all of us is through the clinical practice. In our clinical day-to-day practice, what we see in our clinics, we see a lot of patients every day in day out, and we understand from patient perspective or from the clinician's perspective, okay, why not something else we can do, something like this, which can enhance the output of a XYZ condition, or XYZ disease, or XYZ thing. So your clinical practice is one of the major contributor in triggering some research ideas. So you should not avoid, or you should not, you should basically not look over those things, whatever the practice you are doing in your day-to-day practice. That's very important. Maybe you can have some observation which nobody has done before. That will be your novel finding, that will be your new finding, which you can do some proper research and publish it as a research paper and contribute something new to the profession. And should be, and ultimately any research idea, as I said, it should be beneficial to the larger community. At the end of the day, whatever the research is happening, all the big researches, if you read a lot of big research papers, you will understand every research is, at the end, is a patient centric. It is for the larger community, it is for benefiting the community. For example, a lot of myopia research are happening these days, right? So why this research is happening? Because they want to contribute something, or they want to in such a way that it is basically helping the community or the population. So anything which you do, make sure in your concept, whenever you are generating any concepts, make sure you think in that aspect, that your research has to be go back to the larger community, or majorly the population. Now, after once you generate the idea of research, you start doing a literature review. Now, literature review is basically, a lot of us don't know how to start literature review. Okay, and what it gives to us, basically, as I said in the beginning also, it gives us the understanding of the existing information. Okay, whatever is the existing information related to that particular topic, related to that particular condition or disease which you are trying to look into, you can go back to the literature, read everything, understand them, and find out where is the gap there. So it gives us the relevant information. It also gives us the background of the existing and the current existing knowledge. It gives us the background, pehle kya kya ho chuka hai, how the things has been evolved. And it also helps in developing the conceptual framework. It also helps you, because when you read all these research papers are basically gives you an insight on how they have gone about their research, their methodology, and other things. So it also helps you in developing your conceptual framework, also refining your topic, because whenever you start your research, you basically have a very gross idea, and once you start doing a literature review, you get a more information, more knowledge about it, and that's how you can go back to a very specific and a very refined topic, and also help you in finding out the research gap, because until unless you do not find research gap which is present in the literature, you cannot go about for any other new research. Yes, there is something I have written about the critical review of the article. Critical review of the article is one of the key aspects. It now, critical review of article is itself is a one topic to discuss basically. So it is basically how you read those research papers, and the information which has been given in those research paper, how authentic that is. To understand how authentic the information which has been published into those researches, you should understand the process of critical review, how you will identify or how you will find out whether the research paper which has published these findings is a authentic findings or not. So this we can, sometimes we will meet again, and then we can take all these topics also one by one and discuss. So critical review of articles means how you go about those literature review articles, read and extract information out of those research papers. The steps in the research literature review, what all are the steps involved? It is selecting a review topic, first of all, what topic you want to work on, then searching the literature, then after searching the literature, you gather the information, read and analyze the out literatures, and then writing the review or writing the findings, whatever is present and whatever is the research gap which is present into the literature. I will discuss this how we are going to do the literature review. This is something which is very, very important for all of us to understand. So literature search, basically most of your literature search, basically how you will go about it, how you will start it. It is basically some search engines which you can use. As I said, computer and electronic database are the ones which we use these days to basically start doing the literature review. Some of the platforms which is very much highly reliable and give you literatures related to the health sciences are the Cochrane Library, PubMed. All of you must be knowing about PubMed. Google Scholars. So PubMed and Google Scholars are the two most commonly used platforms which help you in finding out the literature. What you have to do is you just have to go to these website. You can type on your computer's PubMed. You will go to the home page of that. There is a search box. You can type your research article or whatever the topic you want to search. You just type, put enter, and it will give you all the list of the researches which is related to your topic, and the latest research comes first. So let's say if 2020 is running, as soon as you will put some topic, the initial 5, 8 or 10 researches will be of the latest, which was published in the year 2020 or 2019, very latest one. But as soon as you scroll down, you will see the older research also coming in. So you can find out everything. Google Scholar is another platform which you can use. Sometimes what happens is Cochrane Library is no, most of us don't know about it. Cochrane Library gives you all the high profile research, especially the systematic reviews and the meta-analysis. Okay, systematic reviews and meta-analysis are kind of a research designs basically, where and it is one of the highest form of the research evidences which is available. So Cochrane Library you can use. You will see lot of systematic reviews and meta-analysis there. But Google Scholar and PubMed basically serve the purpose for most of us. Most commonly used are PubMed. And there is something I have written as a cross-referencing. Cross-referencing is very, very important. Sometimes you don't get much of the articles, or students who do research come back to me, sir, I'm not finding, I only found 4 articles, or I've only found 2 articles on the PubMed, I'm not getting any more articles, what to do? So there is where you can use your cross-referencing. Cross-referencing is very simple. Let's say if you have one article which you are reading, at the back of that article there will be a references written. They have around 18, 20, 25 references which they have documented. You can go and find out articles from those references, because those references are related to your topic. So you can take those references, search those paper and read about it. So that's where your this is called cross referencing, or that's how it will help you in finding more and more articles which is relevant to your topic. I hope I'll be very clear so far. If any doubt, please stop me in between. Any query, I can answer it, not a problem. Everybody clear so far? Kapil?
Uh, yes, sir. So there is some
Yes,
question.
sir.
So
Yes, please.
I guess it will be better if we discuss it at the end of the presentation.
At the end of the presentation, you want to discuss?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no problem. So, but if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I can go a little slow as well. I'm trying my best to. Okay, now to continue with the literature search, how do you go about it? First, I told you, okay, you can use these platforms. You can use PubMed, you can use Google Scholar, and you can use Cochrane Library, and there are some other. But as far as optometry is concerned, optometry, ophthalmology research, PubMed is the best platform you can use. Easy to access, you'll get a lot of information. Also, Google Scholar is also good, and Cochrane Library. These two, three platforms will serve the purpose. Your majority of the literature you will find on these. That is where, see, why these platforms are important, because all the high quality of research will be get published into the journals which are PubMed indexed. PubMed indexed journals are those journals. If you publish something in those journals, that will reflect into the PubMed. There are journals who are not indexed journals. So indexed journals articles will not be reflected onto the PubMed. So every time you are doing a literature review, you make sure you always refer to the high quality of papers. High quality of papers in the sense which are published in the good quality of journals which are PubMed indexed. Because those journals are the one who publish, their review process is very strong. They critically review the research before they publish. So it is highly reliable, and the information which you will get is more authentic when the literature is indexed into the PubMed. Now, how we can search those articles? Like, for example, you want to do some, for example, you have a very gross idea. You want to do something related to amblyopia, for example. Okay, so just okay amblyopia. So that is where your keywords are very, very important. So keywords are the one which you can use in searching the literature review. So for example, if you want to do a literature search on amblyopia. So amblyopia is keyword which you can use. You can go to your search box, type amblyopia, put enter. You will get research which is related to the amblyopia. But sometimes what happens is we can use more than one keyword. So for example, keyword is amblyopia, as well as in you say Indian population. You want to look into the amblyopia into the Indian population. So your one keyword is amblyopia, your another keyword is Indian population. So you can use multiple keywords also for searching your literature. And there are something which is known as the Boolean operators. I don't know if you people are aware of this or not, but these Boolean operators are important while you are searching your literature using PubMed or Google Scholars. What you can do is these Boolean operators are and, or, and, not. Okay, so they serve some purpose while you are doing a literature review or literature search on the PubMed. For example, if you use and it should be used in the capital. So for example, if you put amblyopia capital mein and Indian population and put enter, the articles which you will come up with, the PubMed will show articles which will involve both amblyopia and Indian population. So your research is very, so your criteria is very specific. You want articles which is related to amblyopia as well as the Indian population. So that is where you can use the term Boolean operator and you can also use or. Or means either this or this. So if you put amblyopia or Indian population, it will give you articles which either talk about the amblyopia or talk about the Indian population, right? And there is something called as not. Not means everything I want, but except this particular thing. So for example, if you want to again do with the amblyopia, you can put amblyopia and Indian population, but not the adult. Okay, so you can put not adults. So it will exclude the adult population or the adult things which is related to the adult and give you information which is related to your uh, topics. I hope all of you are clear with how you can use with this and, or, and, not Boolean operators. This is very, very important and it makes your literature search very easy. Initially पता ही नहीं होता है, people go about, I don't know, I'm not able to find any relevant articles. Reason why? Because we are just to put some of the other XYZ words. So you should go about the keywords first of all and also use these Boolean operators which are and, or, and, not. So if you use this, it will be more easy. And also you can do the cross referencing. As I said, cross referencing also gets you a lot of relevant articles. Okay, so this is about the so far what we discussed about this the literature search. What kind of platform which we can use, also what are the methods or how we can go about searching the literature. Then comes your sources of literature. Basically, what all are the sources of your literature? Because PubMed only gives you literature review related to the research articles. Okay, but research articles are not the only source of your information, or not the only source of your literature. There are so many other sources which you can look into finding out the information. So I have divided them into four categories. Basically, the primary sources are the ones which I have been talking so far, like your literature articles, your thesis, original researches. Okay, your secondary sources also are there. Secondary sources example, description or summary by somebody other than the original researchers, means your books, जो आपकी किताबों में इंफॉर्मेशन होते हैं, the information which is put into the books can also serve as the source of a literature, or also serves as the source of an information. And also if sometimes you have investigations related, any research you are doing, let's say you are doing on some research which is related to OCT, the OCT manuals, the books which talks about those machines and all, these all are not published articles, but still they serve as a good source of information. And even other websites also, like not just the research papers but the information which is present on the internet in the form of PDFs, in the form of presentations, XYZ, these all are the secondary sources which you can also use for finding out the information. Lot of websites, okay, company related websites, if you are working on any instrument and other things, these all are the secondary source of the information. Then comes the conceptual and theoretical papers. Okay, these are, what are these? These are basically paper concerned with description or analysis of theories or concepts associated with the topic. Sometimes people have different or unpublished data or unpublished theories. There are a lot of research which just happened but never get published. Okay, These all are the new theories which has been rejected or which has not been published anywhere, that can also serve as your literature. And also anecdotal opinion or clinical, this is very very important again. Like for example, somebody who is very senior and have lot of experience in any of, let's say somebody who has a experience in doing OCT from last 15 years, the information which they will give, because they have never published anything, but the experience which they carry along with will give you a lot of information. So their clinical observations, as I said, or the people who are into the clinic and have done a lot of patients, their own experience can also serve as your literature, or the information which you can gather from them also is a source of your literature, or also is a source of information which can be utilized as the literature review. I hope everybody must have been clear so far how the literature review concept goes about. First, from where, what are the sources of platform, then how we can go about searching those literature, and also what are the other sources other than your research paper which you can use as the literature review. So far so clear, Kapil? Can we go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Fantastic. Then after all the things, or once you are done with your literature review part, then comes your hypothesis formulation. Hypothesis formulation means, as I said, identify the literature gap. After reading all the literature, everything, you will come up with some literature gap. It's the information I have gathered, I have read all through this, and I have understood that in something this is missing, or this has never been looked into, or there is no research available on this particular aspect. This is your literature gap, and this is what you can identify only when you read your literature. Literature review is an extensive process. Okay, ideally a literature review require minimum of 6 months. Okay, for any good research to happen, a literature review takes minimum 6 months, and minimum to read about 50 to 70 articles at least related to one topic. Then only you can come up with a good quality of the gap or authentic literature gap which is present in the literature. And based on the literature gap which you have identified, you will basically generate your hypothesis. You generate your hypothesis means, that's where you will define your aim and objective of your research, that what you basically want to cover in your research, and define your objectives. And based on the literature gap you find out, you have to find out.
No, excuse me, just a minute. Uh, uh, Preeti Yadav, can you please mute yourself? Okay,
And
so you can.
based on that, you can generate your hypothesis. Hypothesis means your methodology. Basically, hypothesis testing is the how you are going to fulfill these gaps. These gaps can only be fulfilled, first of all, when you know what you are going to work upon, and then what is required for that. That's where your methodology is important. Again, I'll take the same example so that it will be easy to understand. Let's say if you have identified some gap in the management of amblyopia, let's say you come up with a gap. Okay, this have never been looked into in the aspects of the management of amblyopia. So when you know that you are going to work on the amblyopia and management, means your research methodology or the hypothesis testing involves subjects which is related to the amblyopia, or the subject which is having amblyopia, and also the treatment methods which is related to the amblyopia. So now you got a clarity on, okay, I'm going to work on these things. So now your research methodology which you will design is basically related to your concept, or the related to the gaps which you identified, or the aim and objective which you have framed based on the literature review which you have done. So once you identify your literature, you identify or get conceptualize your aim and objective, you plan your method of hypothesis testing, which is in general terms which we call it as the materials and methodology. Means how, what is the process of your research, what you will do in your research to get some output. Let's see what all things we do. Yes, here comes your materials and methods. So material and methods involve lot of things. As I said, it the first thing which it involves is the method of testing. What all are the testing, what all are things which you will do to collect the data. Your method of testing is nothing but one of the methods for testing, for the extraction of the data or collecting the data. But before you go into it, you should understand which research design you have to follow. Okay, what will be your sample selection criteria, how the sampling technique which you will use, these all are the part of your materials and methodology. Because if you do not have a clarity, that's where your research is defined. Trust me, every time you do a research where everything is acceptable, but if your methodology is flawed, your research is a waste. So make sure you have a robust methodology, and if your methodology has any flaws, nobody will accept your research paper. So make sure you work very thoroughly on your research methodology, so that you get a clarity on and you follow a very authentic and genuine methods of your data collection. So that's where understanding of the study design, understanding of your sampling techniques, understanding of your data collection techniques. Now here comes your research methods. Your research method involve all these things. Again, study design itself is a very vast topic. Sampling technique again is a very vast topic. Data collection techniques again is a very vast topic. I hope I can cover everything today, but not possible. But still, I will touch on each of these. And then I have, in bold letters, I have written something known as the bias and confounders. Bias is something which we have to always take care, because all of you know what is bias is. Bias basically is a kind of an error. Okay, it's a kind of a systematic error which can happen by chance also. Like the researcher may are not aware of that there is a bias involved, or sometimes it has been done purposely also. But any research which is biased in any terms is not a good research. So all of us should have a good understanding of the biases, and also we should know how we can avoid bias. Now again, bias is a concept which is related to the research methodology, has a lot of things. I will touch on this topic today little bit. And again, there is something called as confounders. Confounders is again one is a kind of an error which can happen during your research. And these bias and confounder can be anywhere, right from your literature review till your report writing. Anywhere this can happen. So that is why it is very very important for all of us to understand what are these bias confounders are. And I will also give you a brief on the study design little bit, and some sampling techniques also. Let's see what all we have. So first thing comes is the study designs. There are so many study designs which can be followed depending upon your literature gap, or depending upon what kind of research you wanted to do. Your research methodology or the research design is dependent on that. In generally, if I'll talk, research designs are of two kinds. One is the observational, and the other another one is the experimental. The experimental research design is the one where everything is under the control of the investigator. So if you are an investigator, you can control each and every aspect, like what exposure you will have, what where the participants you will take from. Okay, so those all basically, for example, your randomized control trials, RCTs, agar aap logo ko pata ho, if you have heard of these things. Randomized control trials are the one which uh,
Excuse me, sir. Um, I would like to mute all of the attendees first. So you have to again unmute yourself and go for the presentation. Okay, sir.
okay, I'm audible, couple, can we continue?
Yeah. Yes. It's good.
Okay, so basically, I was talking about the study designs. Generally, we divide them into two categories. One is the observational, and another one is experimental. Experimental study designs are the ones where everything is under the control of the investigator. Investigator can control each and everything, right from their sample selection to, the what kind of exposure you will give to your samples, for how much time you will give. Everything is under the control. Whereas observational are, as the name suggests, most of your terms will serve the purpose for you. Observational means you just observe what is happening and write those findings, that's all. Okay, so under the experimental, we are the example of experimental study designs are the randomized control trials. All of you must have heard those drug trials. It is one of the highest form of the research study design, which is known as the randomized control trials. Randomization means where the selection of the sample is random, Controlled means where everything is under the control of the examiner or the investigator. That's why we name it as randomized controlled trials. Observational study designs are the one which most of us do. Most of your optometry and ophthalmology research studies fall under the category of the observational study designs, where we can do case reports, case series, cross-sectional, case control, and cohort study designs. So case series and case report are, as I said, is basically clinical research. Clinical research in the sense you have some patient, you observe some new finding, you try to write one case report based on that. Case series, if you for the similar finding you have more than a 2 4 8 10 patients but a rare finding, you can publish a case series also. Cross sectional studies are mainly one time study. For example, one time study in the sense of some patient, so your subject comes to you, whatever the information or whatever the finding you wanted to take, you take those measurements and findings and let the patient go. These all are cross-sectional studies. Case control studies are two groups. One, you have a case, another group is a control group, and then you try to compare between them and see what is the difference between the cases and the controls. And cohort study designs are those study designs which are follow-up study designs. Let's say what happens today and what happens to the same person or the same patient after 2 months or 3 months. Okay. Or let's say, for example, any disease you want to study about. Okay, today if that patient come up with this particular disease, now what over the period of time what changes are happening into the patient eye, or what changes are happening into the condition of those particular disease, you observe that follow up periods. Okay, so these all are cohort study design. Understanding of these study designs is again a very vast topic. It takes me another 1 hour if I'll try to explain each one of you, each of these study designs, maybe. But just to give you an brief of that, I have showed you this particular flowchart where you can understand. So generally, most of the study design, if you try to look into it, anytime, next time, whenever you people reading any research paper, it will be mentioned in that a cross-sectional study design was performed or a cohort study design was applied. They document in their research what kind of research study design they have followed. It also depends on what kind of research you are doing. Your research design basically depends on the objective which you are want to cover up during your research. Then comes the bias and confounder, one of the most important aspects of any research. If you are not aware of biases and confounders, your research study is not at all good. If you cannot control them, but at each point, right from your idea, right from your research formulation till your research writing, everywhere bias can happen. There are several types of biases. I have just mentioned the four common ones, which is the four very common ones. So what are these? These are basically a systematic errors. These are kind of an error which we should avoid during our research. And the biases can happen like selection bias, information bias, interviewer bias. Selection bias is a kind of a bias where the bias is involved in the selection. I'll give you an example for that. So let's say if I want to conduct a study which is related to the, let's say I want to look into the prevalence of diabetes. Okay. Now when I try to look into the prevalence of diabetes, what I do is I take subjects only who are above 50 years of age. Now this is a selection bias. Why there is a selection bias? Because I am taking subject which is all above 50 years of age, and we all know that old age patients, anybody who is 50 plus years of age, will be more prone for diabetes, right? So if I take all the subjects which are above 50 years of age, I will be having a high chances that the prevalence of the disease in my study will be high, because I have done a selection bias. I have only taken subjects which are more prone for the condition, so that in my research study, the finding which I will get, it shows there is a high prevalence of the disease. But in general population, because as I said in the beginning, any research which you will conduct should be replicated back to the population. So your sample should always reflect the population, or should be a part of the population. In the population, only not the people who are 50 years of age are existing. There are younger population also, right? So there are a younger population also which is present in the population. If you don't take them, definitely definitely your prevalence will be high. So that is where this is called selection bias. You should avoid these kind of biases. Information biases, again, information biases, the information which you so especially what happens is, especially it happens in where the questionnaire based studies are happening. Okay, the information, so if you have given me any questionnaire to fill, I may not give you the relevant information, and I may not give you the true information. I will hide the information which I want to. So that is what your information bias is. Similarly, there is something called as the interviewer bias. Interviewer bias is, I will frame the question in such a way that I get the answer which is desired. So that is known as the interviewer bias. I ask you the question which you which is like that the output which I want, I'll get a relevant output. So these, there are several n number type of biases which can happen. These are some gross one which I have put here, which you have to avoid. So you make sure that every step you look into, or you take care of the biases which can be present in your selection process, in your methodology. Similarly, there is something called as the confounding factors. Confounding factors is example, if you want to build a relationship between two variables. Let's say there is an example given, all of you can see here. I have written coffee drinking, heart disease, and smoking. So let's say I want to build a relationship between smoking and heart disease. Let's say my research is related to, I want to find out how many people who smoke get heart disease. Okay, so in my selection, what I will do, I will take people who are smoking, and then I will see out, if these many people are smoking, how many of them have the heart disease. Correct? That's how we should go about it. But I should also look into, is there any confounding factor? So here, coffee drinking can be a confounding factor. Why? Because people who do smoking, more majority of the people who does a huge amount of smoking, they also have a habit of drinking either tea or coffee. Okay. Now tea and coffee is also related to the heart disease. Now what happens is, when you take people who are smoking, but make sure you are not finding out whether they are coffee drinkers also or not. So coffee drinking is a confounding factor here. It may also affect the findings. So while you are formulating the hypothesis, while you are giving that smoking can lead to heart disease, you should make sure that you take subjects who are only smokers, who do not drink coffee, because coffee is one variable which is related to the smoking as well as to the heart disease also. So these are the common variable here which is related to the exposure as well as the outcome. So here in this case, exposure is smoking and heart disease is your outcome, but coffee drinking is an confounding factor. I'll give you more relevant example which is related to the optometry, so all of you can understand. Let's say you want to build a relationship between the myopic refractive error and the axial length. We all know, as the axial length increases, myopia will increases. But we also know that corneal curvature can also play a role in the myopia development. So you should make sure when the patient, whenever you are trying to build a relationship between axial length and refractive error, you should make sure that there is no role of corneal curvature which is involved, because if you don't control this factor, it has also some effect on the output. So your findings will not be a accurate finding. Your finding will be having a confounder effect on that, which does not reflect a true impact of a particular thing. So in this case, we will not be able to find out what is the true impact of axial length on the refractive error. So that is where confounders also you should look into and understand. Then comes your similarly sampling techniques. As I said, sampling techniques is very important. What will be your samples? Who will be your target population? Who will be your sample which will be a part of your research study, from where you will extract your data? So basically in our researches, optometry and ophthalmology researches, as I said, most of our samples are the human samples, right? We take participants, we take subjects, or we take patients. So there is a two type of sampling. I'll just briefly introduce you sampling techniques. There are two types of sampling techniques. One is known as the probability. Another one is known as the non-probability sampling. So generally the gold standard ones are the probability sampling. Under the probability sampling comes your simple random sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. Whereas non-probability sampling comes under your, where you will have the You will have convenient sampling, you will have quota sampling, you will have purposive sampling. So these all are not the ideal methods of the sampling, but still can be done at some or the other point, again depending upon what kind of research you are doing. But the most important one is the probability sampling, and out of the probability sampling, which one is the most reliable and most relevant is the simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is basically nothing, but in simple random sampling, every person of the population have an equal chance of participating in the study or in the research. There is no bias involved when you do a simple random sampling. Basically, I'll quickly tell you how simple random sampling is done. Simple random sampling is like you just randomly select the people. You have a bunch of group. Let's say you have a bunch of 1,000 groups. Out of that 1,000 group, you want to correct take only 100 people as a sample. So without anything, you just randomly select the numbers, okay, and then take those people. So when you're randomly selecting, you can you have a that is unbiased, okay. But what happens is sometimes if you be very clear, okay, you have a very specific criteria, I want these people to be a part of this study, there is a bias involved because you are not giving everybody chance. So these all things, again, as I said, is very detailing, and I hope I will be able to cover all these things some other time. But to give you a brief of that, I'm just exposing these things to you, so all of you are aware that these kind of things exist in the research methodology. You can go back, go to the internet and search and read about these things, and maybe if required some other time we will connect back and discuss all these aspects in full detail as well. And non-probability sampling is something where is there is no random selection is happening. You can just selectively taking the people. So purposive sampling is, so for example, if I'm taking a if I'm doing a keratoconus study, I'll take patients who are obviously I have to take patients who are of keratoconus. So it is not a random sampling, it is a purposive sampling. I'm purposely taking these people because my research is based on that. So sometimes it's based on the kind of a research which you are doing, but ideal method is the probability sampling, out of which simple random sampling is the most relevant method of sampling techniques. So far so clear, Kapil? Can we go ahead? I hope I'll be on time. I'll try to finish another 15-20 minutes.
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay. Then comes your, after the selection criteria is done, you know what research design you have to follow, okay, what sampling method you have to follow. Then comes your data collection. You have to do a data collection. You should know about the data collection methods and techniques. You should also know about the types of data which are exist. And then after, once you are done with the data collection, you have to have a data analysis which is done. I will talk about these things quickly. So data collection methods are, these are some methods which we use for data collection. They are questionnaires, as I said, surveys you can do. Clinical data, again I have highlighted clinical data because people who work in hospitals or who do a research which is clinical research, their clinical data is important. You take patient data, patients measurements of the eye, let's say axial length measurement, refractive errors, okay, corneal curvature, all these information is a data, all this information is your clinical data, your interviews, your observation. But clinical data is the one which is very very important. OCT findings, whatever you do in the clinic, whatever the record of the patient you have, those records is basically can serve as your data for your research. Your all the clinical research will be based on the data which is your patient related data. Your patient related data, right from patient demographic to their fundus findings, everything is a data. Just depend upon what research you want to conduct. Based on that you can extract that data. That is where your retrospective studies comes into play. Retrospective studies, people who are working in hospitals can do a lot of retrospective studies where you can go back to your MRDs and got this information, relevant information, extract out from the patient's data and do some research. Okay, so these are the common methods of the data collection. Now this slide is important to understand. We have generally four types of data. Basically, categorically, if we divide into, data are of two types generally. One, here it is written as qualitative and quantitative, but I will give you another aspect of that. Something is known as the categorical and continuous data. Categorical data are which is divided into categories. Under your categorical data, here comes your nominal and ordinal data. Your nominal and ordinal data comes under the Categorical data. Categorical data are the one which is divided into categories. For example, your gender is male female, two categories. Similarly, ordinal scales means where where you ask the rating. So for example, you are asking some rating, let's say any impact of any drug. So let's say out of, you ask somebody to rate from 1 to 10, whether 1 is least impactful, 10 is maximum impactful. So these grading is known as the ordinal data. Okay, so all the, or sometimes when you ask the experience of the patient, how they feel, bad, good, excellent. Okay, so bad, good, excellent is nothing but an ordinal scale. Okay, this comes under your categorical data. Your continuous data on the other hand is the one which has all the meaning. Even examples are your age is your continuous data, because age can be one year also, age can be 1.2 years also, age can be 1.3 years also. So all the, even the decimal values have some meaning. Okay, that is your continuous data. Your another example of continuous data is axial length, your refractive error. All these are your continuous data. Your categorical data, as I said, ratings 1 2 3 4 means in between 1 and 2, 1.5 means nothing. When the decimal value does not have any meaning, those all things comes under your categorical data. Where the decimal values will also have some meaning, it comes under your continuous data. Continuous data, these are the types of scaling basically, and now I will not talk about it, but just to remember, the data can be divided into four general categories: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Your interval and ratio comes under your continuous data, whereas nominal and ordinal comes under your categorical data. Then after you have your data collection done, you have to analyze your data. Now data analysis can be done in a two ways. One is the descriptive analysis, another one is the inferential analysis. Descriptive analysis, nothing, is just by describing the data. So if you have 100, if you have a sample of 100, you just describing your data. What was the mean age of the sample, what was the range of the sample, what was the mean values, common values of that. Just a description of your data, that comes under your descriptive analysis. We can use mean, median, mode, standard deviation, all these things in descriptive analysis. Whereas inferential analysis is where you infer something out. You means you conclude something out of that, where you do some comparisons, like you compare between two groups, or you say this is better, this is not good, this is good. All these comparisons comes under your inferential analysis. And especially your testing of your hypothesis, or the hypothesis or the objective which you have created. Let's say you wanted to correlate something. You said, I want to see a correlation of the age and axial length. What happens to the axial length with an increasing age? All these things, these comparisons, these correlations, everything comes under your inferential analysis. Here you have to do the hypothesis testing. Okay, now how we can do this data analysis, your inferential analysis, both you can simultaneously can be done, or individually also can be done. The methods of doing data analysis are these. Number one, which I have written, is the manual calculation. Nowadays nobody is using it. Okay, optometry, ophthalmology may none of us has to use this. It's just for the sake of we know about it. There are some statistical tool or formulas, mathematical formulas, which you can use to calculate your data analysis, or you to do the data analysis. But these are very lengthy process, and you should know a lot of mathematics for that. Another tools are Microsoft Excel. Yes, Microsoft Excel gives you all the basic data analysis, your mean, median, mode. As I said, descriptive analysis you can do, can be easily done using your Microsoft Excel. Again, you need some training to perform these things. These are, as I said, all these things which I'm talking as individually one topic which we can discuss anytime. And the most common one is the SPSS. SPSS is a tool which is used for done all the data analysis, and this is one of the most highly reliable softwares and highly accepted by all the international journals. If you use an SPSS as a tool for doing the data analysis, there are several tests which you can do using the SPSS, or even the manual calculation. These are parametric. Commonly we divide them into parametric and non-parametric. Pair t-test, independent t-test, one way ANOVA, correlations, Wilcoxon. These all are the different types of tests. These tests are based on depending upon what kind of data you have. If your data is normally distributed, you follow some parametric test. If your data is not normally distributed, you do some non-parametric testing. Now this is one of the key aspect of the research. Everything you can learn over the time, but if you know this, your data analysis, you can do your own data analysis, you can do your own interpretation. You not need to be rely on anybody. A lot of people go to statisticians to do all these things, but anytime you can learn this and do this. I hope Kapil were and me were talking that we can plan something in more details. As I said, these all information requires a whole lot of a day to complete all these aspects, but I'm just giving you an insight so that all of you know what all things are involved in the research. After the data analysis is done, you need to interpret your data. आपने अभी data analysis कर लिया, you are done with that, you have some output with you, so you should also know how you what you will interpret out of that. Okay, so basically data interpretation, again, it requires a lot of skills, it requires a lot of understanding of the statistical concepts which is related to the research, but still it gives you, it is a task which is related to draw conclusion, how you will conclude something based on the output. Your output is dependent on the your data interpretation, the way you interpret your data, whether you are correctly interpreting or you are not correctly interpreting. It depends on your understanding and learning, but it gives you an idea and it helps you to draw the conclusion of your research. And it requires the, as I said, requires the statistical output understanding, and also it explains the significance of the output. Your data interpretation or data output will tell you how significant is your data. It all depends. If you look into the SPSS, if you understand the SPSS or these tools, and then also sometimes it may trigger some new questions also, because once you get the output of your research only you will understand the hypothesis which you were creating, whether it has fulfilled that hypothesis, it has proved that hypothesis, or it has not proved that hypothesis. It is dependent on the what kind of output you will get, whether you have got a good output, reliable output or not. It depends on what kind of methodology you have followed. That is why, and how your methodology should be good enough where you can avoid all the biases and confounders and all the errors which is related to the research methods. And based on that you can, either accept the hypothesis or reject your hypothesis based on the output you will get of your data. Now once you interpret your data analysis is done. Now comes your final output, which is the report writing. Now report writing itself is a one big task. Report writing itself requires a lot of components, has a lot of understanding how you should go about in writing your research. So but generally what we do, it contains in the form of a thesis or manuscript. Manuscript is nothing but your research paper. So at the end what we do, we either write it in the form of the thesis or in the form of the manuscript, and it contains these three basic aspects of any research report. Your preliminary page are ones where you will write your titles, your acknowledgements, your abbreviations. The important aspect of your research comes into the main body text. Your main body text involves your introduction part, your methodology part, your result discussion and conclusion part. All these will come into your main body text, and then comes your end of reports. End of reports means your appendices, your referencing, your bibliography. All these things will be a part of your end report. Either you're writing thesis or you're writing manuscript, anywhere these concepts will be applicable irrespective of, nowhere it is getting changed. Even if you're writing manuscript, the concept remains same. The only challenge comes in writing manuscript is you have a word limit. Okay, whereas in thesis you do not have any word limits, so you can write whatever you want to. But when you're writing manuscripts, and manuscripts writing is also dependent on journal to journal. Let's say if you are publishing in a specific journal, you have to follow the guidelines given by that particular journal. Follow the guidelines and you can write the manuscript, but any common manuscript will contain these aspects: preliminary page, main body text, and end of the report. I have, from my end, it is all done. I hope I have been tried to cover up most of the things, and thank you everybody for your patience listening. I'm ready to take on the questions now.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. So, should I
Thank you.
have to read out for you questions, sir?
Yes, please, one by one you can.
Okay. There is the question from the Jagdish. Thank you so much, Jagdish, sir, for your question. So he's asking for what percentage of plagiarism is acceptable for publishing a article?
Oh, yes. So plagiarism is one concept which I have not talked about. Generally, what happens is if you're writing thesis or manuscript, try to get the plagiarism check, and your content should be more than 90% original. Till 85 also is acceptable, but you try to target that your content should be as original as possible. If it is 100%, well and good. 85 to 90% should be original. So the error or the plagiarism of only 10 to 15% is acceptable, not beyond that.
Okay, so here is
Should
another question. How to decide the sample size of the research study?
So basically, sample size, I see these questions are coming up. Reason why I have not talked about these things, because these itself are vast topics. Sample size collection depend on lot of things. Number one is, as I said, what kind of study you are doing. So for example, if you are doing a population based study, you should have a large sample. Okay. If you are doing a research which is based on a very rare condition or a rare disease, for example, if you are doing any research on cancer patient, now in cancer patients, generally you will not get a lot of patients who are having cancer. So there your small sample will also serve the purpose. But yes, we do have some methods of calculating the sample size. There are formulas which you can help, and it is based on again your literature review. You have to have one or two article which is your core article. Based on that, whatever the sample they have taking that as a base, you can calculate your sample size using a different methods. Which kind of methods? Again, we need to have an understanding for that. There is some research paper I would like to, if possible, I'll try to share with all of you, which talks about how the sample size should be calculated depending upon what kind of research has been conducted.
Thank you. Excuse me, Sanjay sir, can you please mute yourself? Sanjay
Should
sir,
I do my?
can you please? Okay, okay sir. Okay, sir. I have also one query, sir. Like
Yes, please.
most of the time we calculate by the using the prevalence on sample size on cross-sectional study, and
Yes.
sometimes what was happening is we use prevalence from the population based prevalence for the hospital based study or cross-sectional study. So
Right.
what might be the mistake if we do such kinds of mistake on
There,
research?
there, there are two aspects of that. As I said, what you are doing, depending upon that, you have your sample varies. So let's say I'll tell you one example. Uh, Generally, when I said population-based study, okay, population-based studies are always very vast and should have a you should actually go to the population and select your samples. And again, the basis of your sample selection should be something which comes from any population based study. So if you go to any population based study, your sample is nowhere less than 5,000. Okay, 3,000 to 5,000 is the common one. Again, if the same study you want to do in your hospital, okay, what you can do is, then it is not a population based study, it is a hospital based study, right? So there is a difference between the two. People tend to get confused into the two, that population based studies and hospital based studies are two different. Now when you are doing a same study in your hospital, you mention in your research that your data was based on the hospital based patients, irrespective of. Now when you have whatever sample you have in that, let's say if you are doing any retrospective study, you went back to your MRD, you have in your medical record, you have 10,000 patient data. So out of that 10,000 patient data, you have taken, let's say, you take some 5,000 data. Out of that 5,000, for whatever fits into your criteria was 2,000 people. So you tell my basis of research was the hospital based data, that you have to document it, that can never be replicated back to the population. Theoretically it cannot be, but in understanding terms, yes, a lot of relevance it makes in terms of the understanding of the concept. But if we talk about the in terms of the in terms of the research, these two are different aspects. So if you're taking patients from the hospital based data, document that in your research that it is a hospital based study, or if it is from the population, mention population based study.
Okay, sir. If we use the
I hope I'm
same, yes, yes, sir. If we use the prevalence of population-based study, and if
yeah.
I use from the hospital-based study, so is it like
There's
yes, yeah,
no problem at all. You know why there is no problem at all? Because your basis is good. Your basis is the population based study. But sometimes what happens is, if you're able to fulfill that criteria, let's say you from the population based study you calculated your sample size, and your sample size comes to be somewhere around, for example, the calculated sample size was 5,000. Now if you can achieve this 5,000 of sample in your hospital, it is well and good. But if you're not, if by any chance you're not able to complete your sample, let's say you have already done 2,000 and you say now I'm not getting any patients, I'm not getting any data, it's okay. With these 2,000 you can still write your paper, but you document in your paper that the basis of our sample size calculation was a population based study. But because we have taken our sample from the hospital based, that is the reason the population sample was cut down to 2,000. See, no study will be ever get rejected based on the sample size. I'm telling you very frankly, no research, no good research or no good journal will reject any paper because there is a sample size is less. Yes, if it is a too less a sample, that is a different story altogether. But if your content is good, and even if you have not achieved your sample, your study is good enough. But yes, calculating a sample is basically, or achieving a sample actually is good for making the your study stronger. So your power of the study, there is something called as the power of a study. Power of a study is basically dependent on your sample. So if you have achieved your sample, means your findings are more reliable. If you have not achieved your complete sample, still your findings are reliable. But yes, there is a little flawed. Reason why? Because the sample was comparatively less. That's all. So that you can anytime write in your limitations of your study, that the sample size was found to be less. So somebody else can take this further and add on to more sample into the same study.
okay, thank you, sir. So there is another question. What is the sample error and how we found out?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Sir, what is the sample error and how to find out it?
Sample year.
Error, sorry, error, sample error.
Okay, sample year. Okay, I understood. Basically, as I said, literature during the, this is also important in terms of the literature review. There is nothing called as the sample year. Okay, sample is see, I'll tell you, sample selection of a sample depends on one thing. Selection of sample depends on your inclusion criteria. Your inclusion criteria is dependent on what kind of research you are doing. Okay, try to involve, depend upon your research question. It is good that you try to cover up the larger age group. Larger age group means you should have a wide range of your sample in terms of the age, because if you take a wider age range, the possibility is you will cover majority of the age groups into your study. Okay, so our objective should be always in any research that our age range should be wider. Okay, but as I said, there are some studies who are only confined to a particular age group, or confined to a particular age population. Let's say ARMD. If you want to do some study on ARMD, ARMD is, we all know, is an age related change. You can't have samples which is of younger age, right? So you are confined to take the older age populations into it. That nothing going to change it. Yes, there is something called as the years are relevant in terms of the literature review. That sometimes our in our literature review we also put that our criteria is, we will take the literature review or the articles we will take for the review from the year 2005 to 2019. So last, let's say 14 years or 15 years. Okay, so that criteria comes especially in the studies which is related to meta-analysis and systematic reviews. There, these kind of criteria you have to apply.
Okay, thank you, sir. Uh, Let me see the next question. So, what is the difference between applied and experimental research?
What is the difference between
Applied and experimental based research.
applied and experimental research?
Yes, sir.
Basically, see, as I said, a lot of, if you go and read about the research methodology as a core subject, you will get to see lot of variety of research. There is something called as the applied research, which you have said. There is something called as the qualitative research. There is something called as the quantitative research. There is something called as the experimental research. Okay, so and there are so many other types also, but I'm very specifying this too in terms of the optometry and ophthalmology. Applied research is basically not our forte. Applied research comes into where you have to apply some concepts. It basically concepts applied in terms of psychology, social sciences. These people do more of these kind of research. Our research is more of, as I said, is more of the observational kind of the research, where we are not changing anything, but just we are observing what is happening, and based on that we are extracting the information and putting into research. And second thing is, if we are intervening something, there is something called as the interventional study, which is something similar to what experimental designs are. But in experimental designs, theoretically it says that experimental design should have all the new modalities to be played in, whereas interventional studies are where the existing methods or the existing management strategies can also be involved. So I'll give you one example to make it more clear, because we sometimes forget about these ethical things. Let's say if you are doing something on finding out the prevalence of, if you're doing any research which is related to finding out the prevalence of any disease, and let's say you come across a patient who have the disease, what do you do with those patients? Generally हम लोग क्या करते हैं जब research कर रहे हैं, तो what we do is, okay, इसको disease है, that's fine, let it go. No, you should not do that. Ethically, if you find during your research course, during your sample collection, during your data collection, if you find people having any condition or disease, it is your duty to treat those patients as well. That is where people, what they do is they also involve intervention. They use the term interventional study. Interventional study is because they have found out somebody is having a problem, they also treated them, and they have also published a output related to it. So that's where it is come. Otherwise, applied research, I don't think so. We so far I have not come across anything in optometry and ophthalmology which is related to the applied research. It mainly goes to the psychology people and social sciences, because they have their concepts. Based on their concept, they apply those concepts and try to find out whether how well those concepts are giving the output to them, because they are more based on their theories, theoretical concepts they try to apply. We are more into the clinical aspects. Our things are more of the clinical output, so we don't apply the theoretical aspect. We have to look into, and when we apply into the clinical aspect, our design will either become interventional or the experimental. I hope I have answered this very well.
Yeah, yes, yes. So, uh, I guess I have already answered for the question.
Any other?
Which software is the best for analysis of data research? This might be a SPSS, right, sir?
It is any time I have a blind faith on that software, and it is high. There are so many other softwares also, but the most user friendly software is SPSS. And trust me, any research, all the good quality of papers you will take, you will find out that SPSS has been used as a
Uh,
data analysis.
so actually, like how which type of data you have, it's also depend upon the selection of the apps. Like what we used to in our graduation, sir, we used to
Mhm.
select a collection of data for a cross-sectional study. If we have to go for the community or same type of question in the large population, community-based or community health diagnosis, we used to EP data. So, is there any relevant things that we before choosing the uh,
The-
software according to the
as
research, sir?
as far as I am concerned, my experience in research, what I will suggest is majority of the research you will conduct throughout your life. Okay, 80% of your research will be done using SPSS. Yes, sometimes if you have used some different tool altogether, okay, there is something called as MATLAB, there is something called as Python, so where software involvements are more, or where you are trying to generate something in you, वहां पर in those aspects you might require some help of other tool. But majority of your optometry ophthalmology related research, which is mainly clinical, I'm not talking about experimental, I'm not talking about the laboratory based researches, okay, uh, those researches may require some other tools also. But as far as your clinical data is concerned, as far as our clinical research is concerned, where patients are involved, majority of the things can be done using the SPSS. That I am sure about. At least, as I said, if you do 100 research papers, 80 research papers you can very well compile using SPSS. Not only optometry, I would say all the other disciplines also, psychology, social sciences, pharmacy, and XYZ, all the nursing, all the health related issue, all the health related professions, they can use SPSS very well. Even social sciences, sometimes I'm not sure about engineering and other things, they might use other tools as well. But as far as health science is concerned, I'm pretty sure that we all can do a good job using SPSS.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. There is another question from the Viraj. Sir, how can we acquire the paid article? Is there any economical way?
So paid articles, basically, during the literature research, while I was talking, all of the free articles which you will find on the PubMed, they will have वहाँ पर लिखा होता है, there's already written free PMC or free. Okay, so to the article which is written as free, those articles are freely available. But those articles who are not freely available, there is no other method. The only method is you either will have a subscription for that particular journal where it has been published, number one, or other thing is you should have to pay for that particular article. If you click on that, it will show you you have to pay this much dollars, $10, $15, whatever. If you pay those much dollars, you'll be able to have access to that particular research paper. But then you have to have most of the time those journals ask for the subscription. Other way of doing is, or other way of getting those articles is, what honestly what I do is, I have a lot of friends abroad who are, so people who are out of India, those people will have access to these journals. So anybody in your friend circle or anybody who has access to that particular journal, you can request them that you want this article, and then they will get it for you. I personally do this. Even I do it for a lot of my students also. If they don't get access to any of the journal or the article, they send it to me. I send to my friends who are sitting abroad who have the access to these journals, and they immediately provide me with the full content of that research paper. So that is the only method. If it is not free, you have to pay for that. Somebody has to pay for that.
So I guess there is a lot of questions, but
Please.
we only go for some of question. So he is Jagdish are asking for how to find the plagiarism on the research article.
So how to find the plagiarism on the
Research article.
research article plagiarism? See, the published, this is first I'll talk about the articles which are published. Basically, the articles which are already published is assumed that have undergone a very rigorous uh, review process, and that is why their plagiarism and everything is checked. That's how they have got published. So you not need to worry about the plagiarism of the published article. The only thing is you should know about how critically you can extract information from those articles. That is what is we are concerned about. As far as our articles, the writing part which we are doing, there are a lot of websites. Okay, there are a lot of on the internet, there are a lot of plagiarism check websites are available. You can go to those websites, put your content into it, and check for the plagiarism. So these all websites are very authentic. Most of them are free of cost also. there is one website, if I can name, is known as the Small CO Tools, SMALLSEOTOOLS, Small CO Tools. This is the one website which is very authentic. You can go there, you can put your content into it, it will give you a plagiarism check. And then what you can do is, you can if you're writing a report, you should also mention which website you have used and how much is the plagiarism. So it is easily available. You can go to these websites and check the plagiarism of your writing book.
Okay, sir. Can we share this link after the session?
Sure, it's just a term, small CO tools. If you search on the Google, you will get it very easily. This website you can go and put your content. And whenever, one small input for all of you, whenever you are checking your plagiarism, make sure you do not put full content at a time. You put one content at a time. So let's say if you want to check plagiarism for your introduction part, just put the introduction part, check for the plagiarism, take it out, then put your methodology. Basically, methodology most of the time will not have any plagiarism, because every time you design a methodology, it itself is very rigorous. A plagiarism check should be done for your discussion, plagiarism check should be done for your introduction. These two are the most important chapters of your research where you have to do a plagiarism check. Otherwise, methodology and result section is again, because result section is dependent what output you will get, you will put the same output, you can't change anything into it, right? So that is where there also it is not applicable, but still you can check, especially when you are writing those terms, it should not match with any other research article. So you can check each one by one. I can share to Kapil what is that website name later as well, not a problem.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I guess Priyanshi, can you please unmute yourself, because it was a very good question and you type on a breaking sentence. Can you please unmute yourself
Please.
and ask for the question, Priyanshi?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Priyanshi, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. Sir, I want to ask कि आपने बोला था क्वेश्चनियर बेस्ड स्टडीज जो होती हैं उनमें
हाँ जी,
कंफाउंडर और बाइस्ड आने के बहुत चांसेस होते हैं, तो सर
राइट.
बेसिकली वो तो प्योरली सब्जेक्टिव होती हैं, तो हम उनमें कैसे अवॉइड कर सकते हैं ये चीज?
Basically, as I said, questionnaire based study will have a very specific type of bias. Okay, there are, so as I said, how the question has been asked and how the question has been answered. Okay, so there are two types of questions which you can put into their questionnaire. One is called as the open-ended question, one is called as the closed-ended questions. Closed-ended
क्लोज
questions are
एंडेड.
those questions. Closed-ended questions are those questions which ask you, which does not give you a much space to answer yourself. So for example, if I'll ask you some question and I'll give you two options, either yes or no, this is closed-ended questions, right? Either you have to say yes or you have to say no, you cannot say any other thing. This is closed-ended question. Open-ended questions are those questions where the participant have the liberty to express themselves. So most of the times it is always recommended that whenever you are putting questionnaire, try to put the open-ended questionnaires, because the chances of biases are less in open-ended, whereas chances of biases are more in close-ended. So for example, if I'll give you some example related to what kind of biases, so for example, if I'll ask you, Brianshi, anytime if I put a question that have you ever failed in the example, yes or no? Now what you will answer? Okay, so it
सॉरी
either
सर,
yes or
कैन
it.
यू प्लीज रिपीट?
So I'm giving an example. Let's say if I give an example where I'll ask you a questions related to your academics, and if I'll frame my questions example, I will say, have you ever caught cheating in the exam? For example, if my question states, have you ever caught cheating in the exam, and the only option you have is yes or no.
नो.
Now what this is, so for example, if you answer no, what it indicates to me that you have been cheating but you have never got caught. So in this question, I have already assumed that you are cheating in the exam. This is a bias involved. See, if you can look into this example, you understand the way I have framed the question itself is biased. This is called interviewer bias. I have
ओके
framed the
सर.
question in such a way that I get a response which I want. So even if Priyanshi said no, it means she has been cheating but never get caught. And if she say yes, It is already assumed, okay, she was cheating and she get caught. So that's what your questionnaire based studies have a lot of biases. It can be from the interviewer aspect, and sometimes if you ask me this kind of question, I as a participant may not want to respond to this. I will hide the information. Okay, so there is again an information bias. I'm giving you a very selective information. I'm not giving providing a complete information to you. So that is where when you are putting questions, make sure your questions are very relevant, and it gives a liberty for the participant or the person who is answering their question, that he can express himself fully. I hope I have answered
Okay,
your
sir.
query.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Completely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So actually, there are a lot of questions. So can we go for with very short answer, because either we have to leave the question or we have to sort the explanation. So
Okay. Quickly, so you quickly, if any relevant questions are there, two, three, I can answer.
yes, okay, I'll be skip. Yes, sir. So any error in result when we compare between the Excel and SPSS?
Can you repeat, Kapil, yourself, please?
Yeah, yes, yeah. So any error in result when we compare between Excel and SPSS?
Results we compare between Excel and SPSS.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get the question actually.
Actually, sir, I guess if we compare the data after entering on the, what we usually do is to avoid the mistake, we used to call it the data on Excel and shift to the Excel for interpretation. So actually, the question is incomplete still. So I guess, so if there is any mistake, if we see the result when we compare between the Excel and SPSS.
I understood your question. See, basically, I'll tell you, it is always advisable to put your data first into the Excel. Don't put your data straight to SPSS, because editing of the data is a little bit difficult in SPSS, which is very easy in Excel. So you can put your data into Excel. Once you do a data entry into the Excel, transfer that Excel sheet. There is an option in SPSS. You can straight away open that Excel sheet into that SPSS and then run the analysis there. So once you run the analysis in SPSS, the chances of error are very less, because these all things are mostly computed. So you are not doing anything manually. So I recommend most of the time, even the descriptive analysis can be done using SPSS. It is just for the sake, let's say if somebody do not have the SPSS, can rely on the Excel outputs as well. But I recommend that even the descriptive analysis you should be doing using a SPSS software itself.
Okay. In which style should we use in the reference and bibliography, and what is the protocol
When
to represent it?
APA and Vancouver are the two most common ones which is used. Again, it depends. It depends on journal to journal. You should look into the guidelines of the journal where you want to publish your article, and accordingly you can put. And quickly, I will tell you how you can find out the references. Very easy way of finding out the reference into your Google Scholar. Go to Google Scholar, put the title of your research study, put enter, you will get the research, and there is an option for referencing. You can click on that. You will get all the formats of referencing, and choose whatever you want to.
Okay, sir. Now, what is the price of software to find out the plagiarism?
The soft I'm not sure about the pricing, but as I said, we don't require these days, because plagiarism check, as I said, is online available. You can, for my studies or for my research, I go to online. I'll just Google them, any of the good reliable websites which check for the plagiarism, and I check my plagiarism. That's all, and I give the reference for that. Simple.
Okay, sir. What is the P minimum, minimal or P value reliable?
Basically, p values and all, again, this all I will talk in more detail when we talk about data analysis, SPSS and all. But generally, 5% error is considered in all the health sciences research studies. Okay, and this margin is basically, there is a concept known as the biological variability. Based on that, it is relied on. So when you do it on the p value, 0.05 is the cutoff. Anything which is less than 0.05 considered to be a significant, whereas anything which is above 0.05 is considered to be not significant.
Okay, sir. Sir, can you suggest some of renowned site where we can submit our thesis for publication?
there are so many new journals are coming. Okay, and my general recommendation to everyone is look into the multidisciplinary research journals nowadays, because multidisciplinary research journals, it is easy to get your article published. If you go very core to ophthalmology related journals, ophthalmology related journals are again very critical, so their review process is also very strong, and itself or time consuming also. Let's say IGO and all, India Journal of Ophthalmology takes minimum 6 months for the review. All the any journal will take around 3 to 4 months in the review. But depending upon what kind of work you are doing, there are a lot of clinical and experimental optometry. Okay, there is a anterior eye. There are a lot many contact lens related journals. There are few journals who are coming for binocular vision also these days. But my personal recommendation is all of you should go about the multidisciplinary journals. Multidisciplinary journals, it is easy to publish the articles, and because they want to get a lot of variety of the research, so they tend to take most of the paper. Because if you go to a specific discipline, they are very, they are very selective in their process. I can, find out some. There are n number of journals nowadays. The only thing which you should look for these days is it should be indexed. When I say indexed, it should be Scopus or PubMed indexed, and it should have a good impact factor. That these two things, and it should also have an ISSN number. ISSN number is one very important, which is, even in academics these days, UGC related norms are there where all the publications should go into journal which are indexed and have ISSN number.
So, okay. Thank you so much, sir. I guess there is still a lot of questions, but we can further discuss on the session because I feel you got
Email,
tired, sir.
not a problem. For me, it's all fine. The only thing is, if there are any more questions, you can email to me those questions, and then I can respond those emails on the email, and then you can share that email with everyone.
Okay, sir, I'll do that. And
And
yes, sir.
I
So,
also request,
sir, yes,
yes,
sir.
please, Kapil.
Sir, actually, I guess we are not able to cover all the aspects on like 1 to 2 hours of classes. So we plan for
Absolutely.
yes, sir. We plan for all the whole set of one research, all the topic
Same.
want to be studying with you. And yes, sir.
As I said earlier, also, this is just the trigger I have given. Each slide of mine was having some concepts, and those concepts will take me at least a day to cover up. See, if I talk about bias and confounder itself is one topic to understand. Research study design itself is one topic to understand. Sampling techniques is again one topic to understand. Okay, data analysis, the types of data is another one topic to understand. So, but I just wanted to give you all a trigger from where it starts, where it ends. Even the literature review part is one topic, how to go about it, what all things needs to be done. There are small things, but these things are very important. There are so many other methods, there are so many mathematical tools also, like how to calculate prevalence, how to calculate incidence, how to calculate odds ratio, all these small things, sensitivity, specificity, p values. These all are the concepts which are related to the research, and I'll be happy taking if anytime anybody wants it. The last slide which I was showing for the data analysis, I have written down the tests. Each test will take around at least a day or a half for to cover into the SPSS, how to analyze everything. And I've seen few of my students were there, Krishna and all, so they have been studying with me all these things. But I'll be happy taking for all of you if anytime we can plan this. And I also request Kapil, to you, please, I requested feedback on this presentation from all of you, so next time when we meet I can try to improvise more things, and always serves the purpose for the audience. So I request if everybody of you can give me a feedback, and Kapil, you can give me a overall feedback of today's presentation. So it will help me to improve myself further.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for us the wonderful presentation,
I,
and I feel
and thank
sincere
you to all of
gratitude.
you, thank you for patience listening, giving time and understanding the concept. I've seen a lot of people have left out slowly, but yeah, there was a good crowd
Yes.
also. Around 100 people were there. in the beginning when we started. I know the subjects are a bit boring also sometimes because it is becomes monotonous. But yes, if you are interested to learn, that's the only way. I have tried to compile it as simple as I can. But as we go more into details of these things, it's become very, very interesting. And I hope I'm looking forward to interact with all of you once again anytime soon. Thank you so much, and it was always a pleasure to interact. Thank you all.